Originally, I was going to jump from the story of the tensions between Leah and Rachel, the sisters who were also both wives of Jacob, to the story of Jacob's sons and the jealousy between the older sons and their younger brother Joseph. But before I get to the story, I realized I couldn't ignore one of the greatest tales of reconciliation in the Bible, and it helps explain all of this family junk that we're reading about Abraham's family. It is the story of the reunion of Jacob and his brother Esau. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Thursday, October 20th, 2022. Well, the time has finally come for Jacob to return home, back to Canaan, to the land promised to Abraham and Isaac. Isaac and Rebekah had sent him to Haran, to their ancestral home, for the ostensible purpose of finding him a wife from among their people. But part of the reason they sent him was that Rebekah sensed that Esau's anger at having been cheated out of his blessing from Isaac was intense enough that he would have killed Jacob. Rebekah, the schemer, had convinced Isaac that the reason to send him away was to find a wife. So, while in Haran, Jacob had been tricked by his uncle Laban into marrying both of his daughters, Leah, the older one, and Rachel, the younger one. By tricked, I mean Jacob had bargained with Laban for Rachel's hand in marriage, working with him for 7 years. But on the wedding night, Laban sent Leah into Jacob's tent, a fact that Jacob did not discover until the next morning. So Jacob agreed to work another 7 years for Rachel's hand also. Then, over a period of years, between Leah and Rachel and their two maids serving as surrogate mothers to the sisters, Jacob had 12 sons and a daughter. 20 years have now passed, and Jacob has become a wealthy man, in part at the expense of his father-in-law Laban. The relationship between Jacob and Laban sours, and Jacob senses it is time they parted company. He gathers all his flock, his servants, his children, and his wives, and begins the journey back to Canaan. As the two men part, Laban utters words that we often think of as warm and loving, but which in fact are words of one distrustful man to another. He says to Jacob, "The Lord watch between you and me when we are absent from one another." In other words, as the Lord is my witness, Jacob, cheat me again, and the Lord's judgment be upon you. Now, after a strange encounter in which Jacob wrestles with God, who gives him a new name, Israel, meaning the one who strives with God, Jacob and his entourage approach home. That's where we pick up the story. Now Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two maids. He put the maids with their children in front, then Leah with her children, and Rachel and Joseph last of all. He himself went on ahead of them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near his brother. So Jacob has good reason to fear here. Not only is Esau coming toward him, he's coming with 400 men, a small army. There could be only one reason for this, thinks Jacob. Esau means to exact his revenge on Jacob for Jacob's treachery some 20 years before. But that is not Esau's intention at all. Here's how the story continues. But Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. When Esau looked up and saw the women and children, he said, "Who are these with you?" Jacob said, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Then the maids drew near, they and their children, and bowed down. Leah likewise and her children drew near and bowed down. And finally Joseph and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down. Esau said, "What do you mean by all this company that I met?" Jacob answered, "To find favor with my Lord." But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." Jacob said, "No, please. If I find favor with you, then accept my present from my hand. For truly to see your face is like seeing the face of God, since you have received me with such favor. Please accept my gift that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have everything I want." So he urged him, and he took it. To Esau's credit, he has apparently forgiven Jacob. And to Jacob's credit, he knows enough to offer gifts in gratitude. What he had apparently intended as an enticement to Esau to go easy on him, he now offers freely, even though Esau at first refuses the gesture. Jacob could have said, in effect, "Fine, all the better for me. If you won't accept what I offer, I'll gladly keep it for myself." But he doesn't. He insists that his brother keep the presents. So the two brothers, once completely estranged, are now reconciled. Perhaps this is part of the reason why we have these crazy stories of family rivalries and double-crossing. For without estrangement, there is no reconciliation. Tomorrow, Joseph's brothers get tired of little brother and attempt to do away with him. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.